Mr. Rogers, what ideas do you have for increasing revenue to the town aside from property taxes?
Other than property taxes? There's none. I guess there's only three sources of revenue, and that would be property taxes, personal property taxes, meals, lodging. I don't know that I'd want to increase any of them right now. I'd like to look at this next year's budget just to see if we even need to certainly won't need to increase any tax, I don't believe, but there's not many ways to increase the additional revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Dellar?
Well, you're in luck because I wrote a newspaper article about this. And after we passed the 10-cent property, assessed property value per $100 a few months ago, it raised the taxes from 70 cents up to 80 cents. And there were a number of things we could have done then and we can still do now. We can aggressively attack our delinquent taxes. For FY15 and 17, they were about $108,000. We can roll back the personal property tax reduction that was done. We are now carrying a burden of about $100,000. As a result of that, that burden was passed on to the property owners. Local sales and use taxes, they were projected in our budget to remain flat. It looks like they're going to grow by about $100,000. We have had peer lease agreements in the past. Those peer lease agreements have been lapsed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellar. Mr. Schick?
Thank you. I think we need to be honest with ourselves about the Colonial Beach economy. We are small, we are season-driven, we have density, and we have a diverse community. These facts have advantages and disadvantages to growing our economy. Overtaxing our residents that can't afford it will have negative effects, as will not taxing enough to cover our own operating expenses. While we tighten our expenditure process, we also need to look for other financial options to supplement the needs, such as private-public partnerships, nonprofit funding, Northern Neck Planning District mission resources, state, federal, and private grants, proffers, fee collections, and short-term state tariffs, as well as service districts. There are many ways that we can diversify our income. By spreading out our financial profile to more than just our small town tax resources, will have a better chance at prospering.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Ryan?
I don't want to see personal property taxes or property taxes increased. I don't want to see the burden go on the town citizens any more than it already is. And I think, one way is going back to the business aspect of it. If we get more businesses in here, that's going to create the revenue, or businesses are going to bring more money in, and it's going to be more people in town that are going to spend money. And that'll be money we earn on that as well. Some of it too is if we increase the amount of permanent residents here too, those businesses will be frequented more than just the seasonal, like Ms. Schick said, and it'll be year-round money coming in, and such things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Roberson?
I agree with many of the things that have already been said, and again, not knowing, not ever having been in this position to know what kind of taxes come in from our businesses. But I think if we had startup businesses that have wanted to come in, we could give them a tax break of some kind. We could definitely give a tax break for our elderly, because I know this has been a hardship with the tax increase on them. I agree with looking for those grants, looking for those things that can come into this community that will bring in the amount of monies that we could use to make things better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Dellar, what are your ideas regarding a parking plan that will enhance revenue and be practical and accommodating to residents and tourists.
We've been looking at some time for an enhanced parking arrangement for the town. As you know, all permanent citizens acquire a town sticker for their vehicles. And so in this enhanced parking arrangement where in the business districts we would have perhaps paid parking on the streets, perhaps even in the residential areas where if you're a visitor, you would either park off-street or you get a sticker to park visiting a neighbor or something like that if you were going to be there for a certain amount of time. There are things we can do. It's no different than in many large cities. They have what's called zone parking, where you park in a given area. If you're not a resident of that area, then you go to the police department or somewhere else and purchase a 1 day, 2 day, 1 week, whatever you may need, sticker, put that in your window, and you're free to park there. Those are some of the ideas we've been kicking around, but I think it all comes down to taxing in some form or fashion people who visit the town here, charging them some type of a parking fee.
Thank you, Mr. Dellar. Ms. Schick?
So this last year, the town manager, along with the town council, doubled the parking fees in town for visitors. Went from $1 an hour to $2 an hour, $20 a day. I think we need to be a little careful about overcharging for parking, especially in the downtown region where we're trying to grow businesses. These businesses need places for people to park, and $20 is going to discourage somebody from parking their car and walking around down there. We need to be a little sensitive to that because we really want those businesses to grow our revenue and our economy more than just the parking. Also, I think we need to make some enhancements at Castlewood Park. There is a definite need for more parking in that area. There are no lines out there. People park all over the place in the trailers. There we have this brand new boat ramp, and we really need to have clear trailer parking at that area to increase boaters using that ramp and more spaces for boats to be parked there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Wright?
I agree with Ms. Schick in the aspect of we need to watch overcharging for this because we do want these people to come into town and spend money, and then if $20 is going to scare them away, is that possibly worth the charge? And two, piggybacking on Ms. Schick again, we need to have the parking lots be logical. I mean, you go down to the point and you park there, and a lot of people, will park in what could maybe be used as 6 or 7 more places for a trailer to be parked, but they just pull in the middle and, not really knowing where to go. So it needs to be lined and fixed and properly attended so it's used more beneficial.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Mr. Roberson?
I would have to agree with what everyone else has said. I don't think that we can charge people so much that they do not want to come to our community. I think we've been very fortunate that we do have the amount of crowds that we have in the summertime, which overflows into the businesses. And I would have to agree that we need more defined spots, possibly with numbers attached to them. When you put your parking stub in or whatever it is that you do, seeing as how we all have our stickers so that we don't end up in a situation like that. But I just think it just needs to be looked at more closely so that we do not scare people away that are coming into town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
Well, whatever we come up with on a parking plan, we want to be careful because we don't want to hurt ourselves, particularly the businesses along Washington Avenue. We got to, consider what hours we want when we want the parking fees to be implemented. I know there's some churches along Washington Avenue. We don't want to hurt the church-going patrons there. I like the idea of the year-round parking sticker. If there's people that visit Colonial Beach frequently enough, go ahead and make available to them that year-round sticker. And then I think if there's any area where we can provide additional parking, we should look in that, particularly if it's a run-down, dilapidated building and is in disrepair, maybe making additional parking out of that. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Ms. Schick, what is your vision for Eleanor Park?
I've thought about this issue a long time. I've been there since the beginning on this for the Planning Commission. Eleanor Park has been in limbo for nearly a decade. I believe that the intentions to remove the trailer park were good, but the reality is that the plan after that has fallen apart, that we have been missing out on a capital asset ever since. The reason this property continues to be controversial is because it was something revenue producing. We were told it would continue to be revenue producing, and instead it has been absolutely rendered useless as a benefit to the town in any way. The idea of subdividing it into single-family homes is not working because the unique conditions of this property do not fit its highest and best use. The subdivision ordinance is extensive. Stormwater management in a floodplain is expensive. It is in an RPA, and there are other options in Colonial Beach to buy a $500,000 home without putting it 8 foot above the ground with 16 stairs to the front door. The idea of a subdivision at this property is like trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. It is just not going to work. So, as a single parcel, you have 2 other options: a conservation-funded recreational space or a handicap-friendly condo townhouse complex. These need to be evaluated. A plan needs to be made, and a finality to this issue needs to be done with, so we can move on to focus on those 54 other parcels in that downtown region, and then develop the remaining number streets, and have an economic development plan for the acres of land out by Wilkerson's that continue to sit vacant. All of these are bigger and more income producing than anything that happens at Eleanor. So let's just figure out what works and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Ryan?
I'm going to be honest, I've mulled this question over a lot in my head, and I think that there's a lot of options that we have to look through and what's best for the town. We have to decide, the town council has to decide what route is best for us as a town to go with Eleanor Park, whether it should be a recreational area or some sort of development go into that area. And I'm honestly truly split right now, and I don't know how to answer that question, because I see it both ways. And I think there needs to be a list that's prioritized of what's best and what's most beneficial and can make the most money for this town, you know, or attract the most tourists for this town to be beneficial to our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Roberson?
I would have to agree with Mr. I to some point. I, for one, was one of those individuals that was in favor of selling Eleanor Park, simply because it had brought in income for decades before, and primarily our resource of income is the tax base that we get from our community. If there are other options, then I am more than willing to look at those and see what others have to say about that. I'm open to whatever it is that anyone wants to present. That's something that is viable. With what Ms. Schick said, those were things that I really hadn't heard before. So obviously there are other options that the majority of people, I believe, aren't privy to or know that could be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
The sale of Eleanor Park was one of the first issues I got involved with when I came on the council. We conducted a survey, and the survey said we have a potential of 14 lots there. Well, that's too many homes on that piece of property there. We kicked around with just how many lots should we have and sell them individually. I was for 9 lots, 5 on the front, 4 on the back. We had a consensus of 11 lots. That didn't go, well, it didn't really materialize, actually put the lots on, on the market. And we had an offer for 6 lots, so I was really excited about that. What my vision was to see bigger, more beautiful homes with permanent families in there to support the local businesses. It's unfortunate that that deal fell through, but I was really excited about that. I mean, I'd like to see some permanent families in there to support the local businesses, to help build our economy.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Dellar?
Yeah, it's been no secret. I mean, I've been in favor of selling Eleanor Park for single-family homes for some time. Despite the issues that Ms. Schick raised, it's certainly a viable area for single-family homes. At this juncture, I'm kind of stymied because it seems like an asset is going to waste. We've had the property now for sale, I don't know, 4 years or more, and it just hasn't gone anywhere. Now, in all fairness, we really haven't marketed it properly. We should get a real estate agent and actively market the property. We may get some better results. Beyond that, you know, I'd like to hear from the voters. I wish there was some way to put this on a referendum and have the voters vote on it. Because quite frankly, I feel stymied by it. So it's a difficult situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellar. Mr. I, what is your vision for the town educational system?
Well, the town educational system, as I mentioned, I'm an employee of Colonial Beach Public Schools, and honestly, I was also a student there, and the schools here saved me, truthfully. I love our school system, and I want to see it thrive. And one thing I would love to see our schools is actually get more involved in these town events, because I think we need to erase the line in the sand and become one unit together. And I think when that does, I think ultimately we're going to be a better community for that. I'm also a realist, and I understand that, you know, the decisions are tough, and I'm not going to make a rash decision because of a school that affects the town. Like, my job is, if I get elected to town council, is to make sure that this town is run to the best of its ability. And I want to see the school system stay. I think it's very, very vital to this community and the youth of the community. I should also mention, I should have said this in my opening thing, I'm the president and commissioner of the CBYA, the Colonial Beach Youth Athletic Association. So I'm very involved with the youth, very involved with the kids and the families in town. And I'd like to continue to see the school system grow and become more involved in the town and erase that line in the sand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Ms. Roberson?
Obviously, I feel many of the same things that Mr. I feels. I too began my career here over 40 years ago. I think this school system is a viable part of this community. I invite everyone in to see how things are run. I invite everyone that has questions to call the superintendent, to call the chairman, to call anyone that's on the board and ask those questions rather than just start things or pass on things that you don't know to be truthful or non-truthful. We are one of the few school systems out of, how many are there? I don't know. But we are one of the few school systems that has been fully accredited for the last 5 years. And that's saying something about the dedication of the people who work in this building. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
I'm in favor of maintaining independent Colonial Beach school system. I think it's a lifeblood of the community. It's the largest employer in town. And people talk about merging the high school in with Westmoreland County High School. I'm not in favor of busing students from Colonial Beach to Montrose. You know, like envision is that the high school kids are not going to ride the school bus, so they're going to be carpooling they're going to be running late, they're going to be rushing to school, down Route 3 there, and that's an accident waiting to happen there. I'm in favor of maintaining an independent Colonial Beach school system.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Dellar?
Thank you. I have come to understand that the Colonial Beach schools represent an unreplaceable and vibrant fiber that holds our community together in many ways. And I have no inclination to change the status quo when it comes to supporting our independent school district. Let me make that very clear. Having said that, when it comes to resources, financial resources, we need to look at the school in a fair, objective way and balance the school's needs against the community's needs. And I will do that in a fair and objective manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellar. Ms. Schick?
Thank you. For the people that don't know out there, our elementary school this year had a waiting list for people to get in. The vision of this town's education system for me is to continue to integrate it with the rest of our community, to grow a community that our school is really a part of. I think that we need to grow drifters, not just from kindergarten, but from the people that come and retire here as well. I want to set the bar high. I want to make us special and unique and different from King George and different from Montrose and the rest of Westmoreland County to attract full-time residents. And maybe in 20 years, we might have to build a high school out on 205 to accommodate that growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Ms. Roberson, what can be done about the storm drainage issues on the point and the flooding and erosion on the North Beach and Monroe Bay Avenue?
That's a really good question. Because I believe the highest point in Colonial Beach is 35 feet above sea level. So when it rains 20 inches in one night, there's not a whole lot of places it can go. Not knowing the ins and outs of public works, this would be one of those things that I would have to get to know better to make a sound judgment on this. One would obviously hope that we would be able to clean out our drains after they fill up with the debris and the water, but I know that that takes time and it takes manpower, and sometimes we don't have that readily available because we have other issues that are going on with public works. So, as I said, well, we're so close to water and there's no place for it to go but up in some cases. I'd have to learn more about it in order to make a better judgment call on it.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
I guess the best or the first source I'd look for is any federal or state grants that could help eradicate the erosion problem along the Monroe Bay there. I think the passage of the no-wake zone will be helpful to reduce the amount of erosion along Monroe Bay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Dellar?
Yeah, I guess I'd have to concur on the grant issue. I mean, we need to look for suitable grants. Beyond that, look to some partnering with the private sector. One of the things I think that's difficult is no one knows our need. We have to somehow alert the private community of our need, that we have a need, and then perhaps someone can come and help us. But I don't see us attaching, unfortunately, any revenues from property taxes or anything like that to tackle at this time. We need to rely on either on grants or some private assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellar. Ms. Schick?
I wrote an article about this, specifically about stormwater issues and how to try to pay for them, accommodate them, and where to find funding sources. If you go to my blog on the bottom of my handout, then you can read more extensively on it. The first problem is that we have to tackle the comprehensive stormwater problem, we need to apply for the funding to get an engineered town-wide plan on drainage, because when we just tackle one drain at a time without connecting it to all the other outlying areas, we aren't going to ever solve the problem. I've heard our public works say, just forget about it, there's nothing you can do. I don't believe that. There is new technology in this field, and I do think there are options, but we just can't pick and choose one section of the road. We need a whole drainage plan to be looked at holistically for the town. Also, until we fix these stormwater issues, we are going to continue to have potholes and bad roads. So unless we tackle this issue, you're not going to fix the roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Ryan?
I agree with the fact that we need to look into grants and funding that can be brought in to fix this issue. And a lot of our drainage is old, and although I know it has to fit the way in the budget, we have to find the funding for it. There is the new technology out there, new ways for drainage and such like that. I don't know a ton about like the public works aspect of it, of how that system all works, but I do know that there is new stuff out there. You know, as basic as we put in a softball field over at the high school, and there's a new way to have drainage, and you place gravel low under the ground, and it absorbs the water better. So things like that have been developed, and they've had these new ideas and technologies that, you know, these engineers have said are proven to work, and we should definitely consider once we find the budgeting of how to implement that throughout the town.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.